All right, all right, all right. We should be good. We should be good. So, everyone, hope everyone's doing well. This is episode, I believe, 3 of the Rugby recap. So, I hope you guys are doing well. Obviously, towards my left, we have the likes of the Kiwi lads. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, mate. In a very smiley mood tonight. Rugby Championship round 2 just around the corner. Couldn't be more excited for it.
Yeah, no, it should be good. Should be good. Really looking forward to it, of course, with the two big matches being the Springboks versus the All Blacks, as well as the Wallabies versus the Pumas. But before we get into the whole kind of rugby championship kind of preview, we just want to give it kind of a bit of a bit of a mention, obviously, towards two players who actually retired. Actually, I think in the space of this last week, which is actually Flan Stain as well as Stuart Hogg. So just I just want to get your take really on. We'll first start off with like maybe with Fran Stain. What do you think about him as a player? Like, because he has retired, so it's kind of crazy to think how long he's lasted. So yeah, what do you think about him?
I think that he's one of those players that everyone still wanted to see in that Rugby World Cup squad,
Yeah,
just because of that, I guess, utility that he has in the backline, his long kicking tee, of course, something that a lot of people remember. And yeah, for me, it was a little bit of a surprise, but that seems to be what a lot of players are doing now, is retiring just before this next World Cup. We've already seen it with Alan Wynne-Jones. And then now the other player who you were talking about, Stuart Hogg, also hanging up the boots. I feel like for him to hang them up was a little bit more of a surprise than Frans
yeah, I think
Steyn
so
for
as
me,
well.
just because Steyn, he was getting a little bit towards the end of his career. And some people were saying he was slowing down slightly. He was still absolutely nailing what he was doing, though. But yeah, it's going to be weird not seeing some of these veterans playing in
It's
France
crazy.
for all these clubs.
It is crazy. On a personal note, because I am a box fan. Flan Stain. When I saw he retired, I was like, oh, it kind of broke me. I was like, whoa, like, oh, he's actually not going to be there. Because again, I do think he would have been selected. I think for this World Cup because I think he's just that like you always want players with that amount of experience, and he gives you he gives you a lot of like versatility as well because he can play the 12. He can play like the 15 if needed. He can play even like the 10 if you wanted to. But it's just like he's one of those players who I really do think like he's played like what 4 World Cups, which is incredible to think. But he won like literally on his first attempt really with the Box in 2007. But then 2011 and 15 obviously the Box obviously didn't do as well in those tournaments. And then, of course, 2019, he wins it again, becoming the second Box to actually win 2 World Cups, I believe, with Oz Durant as being the first. But yeah, it's crazy because he is now really a part of Springbok history. So it's kind of sad to see him go, of course. And he did. I also like love seeing this because it's always posted on social media so much, but like how he played against what's his name, Andy Farrell in that 2007 World Cup, and then he played Owen Farrell in the 2019 World Cup final. So it's just crazy to see how long he's lasted. But yeah, with Stuart Hogg as well, he's just an incredible player. And unfortunate, of course, like you said, that I think he's only like 31, so he has really kind of
Mm.
retired at an earlier age, you could say, in terms of rugby. But of course, injuries has hit him hard, so it's understandable in that sense. But yeah, no, they will be missed. They will be missed. But yeah, let's get straight in. Obviously, we'll kind of go on from there. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Well, it just sounded like they were deceased, but they aren't at this stage. They are just retired from the international game. I
No,
believe
no, of
Stuart Hogg,
course.
is he still going to be playing club rugby as well for his
I'm not sure. See,
side?
this is the thing is that like I think they've both retired from rugby. I think that's what they've said.
Because Alan Wynne-Jones, I think, has retired from international, hasn't he? But he's still going to be
Exactly.
playing for the
He's
Ospreys.
gonna do like I think he went to is it like Toulon like on a short term deal or something like that.
Mm,
Is it Toulon? I think it's Toulon, but
maybe. So many
um
transfers at the moment, isn't there, that players are
oh
going left, right, and centre.
there's so many. I can't wait to do a transfer video on my channel in the future. But yeah, no. In the comments, we do have actually just want to quickly shout out Grant Swanson. How's it, lads? Good to see you. He said, yeah, France Day only played in 3 World Cups. He didn't play. Oh, he didn't actually play in 2015. Oh, I thought he played in 2015. Maybe I'm wrong on that front. But oh, I thought. Oh, you know what? Actually, you could be right because he actually was out of favor during that time. So yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense. But hey, still 2 World Cups to his name, which is pretty remarkable. But Yeah, as we were saying, let's talk about the Rugby Championship. Round two obviously around the corner, starting tomorrow, which is incredible to think. But I mean, let's first talk about the big game, which is I think for both of us really, which is the All Blacks versus the Springboks. Like, what do you think about this? Yeah, just overall, what do you think?
Well, one side, unfortunately, has to lose this game, unless, of course, it is a draw. But both of
That's a
these
good way to say
sides
it.
having such one-sided affairs in their first round of the Rugby Championship means that both sides come into this game with a lot of confidence. And, that confidence at some stage throughout this game is going to get taken away. There's going to be moments in this contest where both sides can feel like they are losing that momentum, and it's going to be the side that's able to pick themselves back up after the big shot or after conceding a try that might just get themselves over the line. I believe it's going to be a very close game. And I was surprised when I saw the betting odds here in New Zealand had the Springboks as such heavy underdogs. But I assume that is because of the New Zealand advantage. But saying that, some of the players from South Africa, very fresh. They haven't travelled too far, only travelling to New Zealand rather than having to travel a bit later on or going to Argentina and back. So it's going to be a good one, that is for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I mean, this game is going to be a really tight contest, I think, overall. I mean, when looking at the previous games, I mean, these sides really haven't been separated by, at least I think at most 5 points. It is really going to be a tough game when I look at this. So I really can't say who's going to win this because I think even last year we had the Boks. We actually had both games actually in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken, and obviously the Boks did win one, and actually that actually was higher than I think the scoreline at 5, if I'm not mistaken, actually. So that was a good victory for the Boks in that. But then, of course, the All Blacks did win that very close battle in the second test. I think coming back into the game actually. So I mean, it really is going to be. It's going to be very edgy. I think for this one, and I think the game's obviously playing within Mount Smart, if I'm not mistaken, in Auckland. So again, another time where the All Blacks don't want Springboks to play. Eden Park. Just try not to break that record of theirs. But yeah, I really want to play at Eden Park. I want to see an All Blacks Boks game at Eden Park, but they're never going to do that just because they know the Boks will win. They know the Boks will win. I mean, you guys all know. You guys all know that. But no, I mean, overall, I mean, I'm very excited for this game. I mean, this could essentially dictate who wins the Rugby Championship, in all honesty, because whoever comes out of this game, obviously, we'll go into next week, feeling, they have the momentum with them. So it's going to be really important to see how it goes. But yeah, we do have in the comments, I think we have Dwayne there. Yeah, saying, let's see what he says there. He says, yeah, I think the AB is a win and win well. Boks have a poor record in New Zealand. No real recognized kicker. Yeah. A few of their stars are playing in Japan all year. Yeah, that's good points. Good points made. I mean, I would say that in terms of the record, however, I mean, you have to understand that in terms of the record right now, actually the Boks have a pretty good record actually against New Zealand, because if you look at the last 2 games that were actually played within New Zealand, again, you have to take into account also there was COVID as well. And I think 1 year was actually played within Australia. So. But if you go back to the last 2 games that were actually played within New Zealand, the Boks actually didn't lose. They drew one of those games, I think 16-all, if I'm not mistaken. And then the other one was actually the first win actually forever, really. I think that was back in, gosh, what year was that? It was 2018. And there was the 36-34 win. So in recent history, actually, the Boks actually have had pretty good record against New Zealand. But yes, overall, the All Blacks are definitely superior on that front. I think they have a record of I saw recently it was 68 wins, I think, to 31. I think that's what I saw overall. So yeah, in that sense, yeah, the All Blacks would definitely be the the favorite team going into this fixture. But yeah, I mean, just overall, then going into the players to see in this game, who you kind of eyeing out in terms of who you think will be a once-to-watch player.
Well, for the ABs, I feel like there are a few players that definitely need a good performance here. I'm looking at someone like a Geordie Barrett in that midfield because of what we saw him do last week. I feel like if he is able to do that again this week up against the Springboks, going head-to-head with Damien Dialende, could be very handy for that AB's backline. But the man who's going to be trying to pass that ball to him, Aaron Smith. I believe Smith's passing in this game could be absolutely crucial, because we saw a little bit of a glimpse of those nice flat
Oh,
bullet
it was
passes
unbelievable.
that he got out during the Argentina game. And I believe that his role, him and Mo'unga, is going to be absolutely so important for the ABs in this one, because if they can't get that ball out wide, if they can't find the gaps in the box defensive line, which normally would be a little bit wider because we know that they've got those big forwards right next to the breakdown that are pretty much like a brick wall that you're trying to hit with a sponge. It's just not quite going to break it. And I think that if they are able to get it out wide, the slight concern is the fact they've got two boys who have just come back from hurting themselves. So
That is true.
whether or not they're going to be able to handle underneath the high ball as well as they would have prior to their injury, I'd say Will Jordan will be fine. Mark Talia's leg is my concern out of those two.
Yeah.
But should be good. I feel like there are a lot of keys for the ABs in this matchup. But for the Springboks, I mean, I'm looking at that bomb squad off the bench and just thinking, how do you compete with some of those players? You know, Malcolm Marks, brilliant player, could have been starting this match, but instead they want to have that impact at the end of the contest. You've got Dwayne Vermeulen, Peter Steph-Toy, RG Snyman. Those three are all game changers, all starters on any given day of the week.
Crazy.
But they're instead coming off the bench. And I believe that one of their players, or two of them combined off the bench for the Springboks, is pretty much the equivalent of the whole of the All Blacks caps coming off their bench. So could be the difference maker, I'd say, is that bomb squad coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Later
No,
on.
I agree. I mean, that bomb squad is going to be really, I don't know, it can maybe edge the game, maybe going into the last 20 minutes of the game, because when I look back at, like, you know, a lot of All Blacks games between the Boks, you know, even like, I think we've seen a lot of people in the media even say this as well, but it's really been dictated within the last 20 minutes of these games. It's never been like where it's been like, oh, it's so far ahead, like where, you know, there's not really much to play for. It really is dictated in the last 20 minutes. And so it's going to come down towards that. So maybe, you know, the Boks obviously having that bomb squad can definitely go into their favor in that sense. But yeah, I guess in terms of my ones watch players for this game, I mean, if I go from an All Black perspective first, I mean, look, this may be a bit biased, but I'm very excited to see what Mark Saleh can do, because I mean, him against like Mapimpi is going to be like incredible. Actually, no, it won't be against Mapimpi. It'll actually be against Cheslin Kobe. Actually, oh my gosh, I just remember. Oh my gosh, I've been thinking this whole time it's against Mapimpi. Oh my god, against Cheslin Kobe. Oh, that's gonna be. I think that could be like the battle of the game. I don't know. I just have a funny feeling that could be like the battle of the game. I mean, maybe he'll come into the center combinations. You never know. I mean, he'll have like Reiko versus Kanye Wam, which would be pretty tasty to see, obviously from a rugby you know, fan perspective. But gosh, I actually didn't realize. I thought Mpimpy was actually doing months later for this, but I forgot that you are actually going to have the likes of Talia versus Cheslin Kobe, which is going to be a very interesting battle, because I did say if there's one player who could maybe stop, I guess, the momentum of Cheslin Kobe throughout the game, it could be Martalea, because you know, he's a good player overall. I mean, again, I would say from a defensive point of view, maybe it isn't his strongest attribute, just because, you know, we saw against the against the Crusaders, you know, back in the semifinals of the Super Rugby, and they really targeted his side actually in terms of, you know, that defensive outlet. And again, he wasn't able to really tackle the ball because they just did a two-on-one situation the whole time. But still, it kind of showed that there's kind of maybe a weakness there. So maybe that's what the Boks maybe go with in this game. But at the same time, you really can't let Martalea have the ball, because he's just he's going to slip his way through as normal. So yeah, it should be interesting to see what he can do. But I guess from a Bok perspective, I mean, I'd love to say like Kanye Wam is probably my most watched player, but again, he didn't really kind of I don't know, he didn't really kind of step up for me actually in that first game against the Wallabies. He just didn't really make much, I don't know, much of an impact really. Maybe he didn't have his hands on the ball as much as I thought he would. But I guess if I had to say one player who could make an impact in this game, and I think just because he played so well in the last game, I have to say it, is probably Willie LaRue. I think he's probably one player I really do think could dictate this game, because, you know, you're going to have him against Beauden Barrett, which is probably a big matchup actually in terms of the 15s. And I mean, Willie LaRue was actually incredible actually against, you know, the Wallabies. And you can obviously say the same for Beauden Barrett against the Pumas. So maybe that's maybe that's more of a key battle, because that can obviously dictate who kind of wins the battle in territories. So Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. But yeah, I see in the comments, obviously, we do have Dwayne's also saying, yeah, Richie needs to take control of this team. He hasn't done that really in the past. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, it kind of leads on to like the question I actually had you with, which I was about to say. Like, do you think now that Mackenzie obviously is in that 10 spot, and now you have Richie, do you think it'll be a kind of different gameplay in terms of how they kind of distribute the ball in terms of the back line? Because it was really well executed. I mean, like you said with Aaron Smith, like it was really well executed in that Pumas game. But do you think this kind of changes it a bit now with Moong at the 10?
I think that McKenzie in that Argentina game was actually coming from a lot further back in terms of joining that back line. He was getting a bit of forward momentum, and I think that heavily benefited New Zealand because Argentina weren't able to rush up and just shut down that back line because you had McKenzie deep, and then also deeper on the outside was Rieko Ioane. So those two were kind of hanging back that little bit more, which then meant that gap, like there seemed to be a constant gap that kept on opening up in that midfield. And Geordie Barrett was finding it. Rieko Ioane was finding it. And each and every time just straight through. And I feel like Richie Mo'unga, I hope that he does similar to what he does for the Crusaders, and that is just waiting for the right distribution option rather than just throwing the ball away for the sake of going, right, we should have a pass now. Because the Springboks are going to rush up at him. And I think that's where the All Blacks, they may have to give away a little bit of territory for the sake of being, because with the Springboks, you've got to try and catch them while they're a little bit more on their back foot. Whereas with how they normally defend, and if you're running it up at them and you're just sitting there in the pocket or sitting there as first receiver, you're going to get like half a second with the ball. And then someone's going to come in, Dwayne Vermeulen, someone in the starting lineup, Quaka Smith, I've just seen from Grant, they're going to go up and go and just whack you down, get the jackal, turn the ball over, and then, you don't get much of a backline going. So I think McKenzie, he was able to do it well up against Argentina. Mo'unga, the pressure's on him to do it well up against South Africa, because or else then in that first Bledisloe Cup game, I think I know who they'll be going with.
That's true. That's true. I mean, because the thing is that I remember the last time actually we had the Mo'unga Barrett combination. Actually, that was back. I think that was that 16-all game. Actually, that was the first time it was actually introduced against the Boks. So it was a really interesting. I'm very interested to see how it's kind of developed now over time, because that was back like in 2000. I think it was like 19 actually. That game. So this is like 4 years onwards now, and again a Rugby World Cup year. Has that combination now developed? Kind of better now since the years have gone by. I'm very fast to see what happens in that front. But I guess in terms of because I also wanted to mention, or I already mentioned it already, but like in terms of that center combination battle, when you have the likes of Geordie Barrett and Rieko versus the likes of Damien Delende and Lukhanyo Am, who do you think will have I don't know, the edge in this game? Because I would suspect maybe it could go the All Blacks' way, because they have a player like Geordie Barrett who's very versatile in the sense where he can kick for territory. He can, I don't know, find that offload if he needs to. But at the same time, do you think those two will be, I don't know, as physical compared to Damien Delende and Lukhanyo Am? Like, who do you think will have the edge over each other in that sense?
I think that in a weird way, Damien Delende, he's at I'd almost call it a disadvantage with the fact that he didn't play last week.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I've been thinking about it a long time, and I'm thinking, would a player rather be fresh from not playing, or would they rather have had that 80 minutes under their belt at international level just to get the nerves going, get into the better mindset and get ready to go for another chance, which is why I believe Lukhanyo Am will be a lot more dangerous in this game than he was up against the Wallabies, because I feel like now that he's had his little bit of time to get back into that international kit, it's going to be definitely fun to watch when those two are going head-to-head, him and Rieko Ioane. But, yeah, I see Rieko possibly maybe being the one who makes the more meters, but I think Lukhanyo Am will probably make the more important meters in that 13 battle.
Interesting.
And then Damien Delende and Geordie Barrett, I think, to summarise what they're going to be doing, is just both of them just have to keep on just running straight at each other and just hope that
suck each other out, really.
What did you say? Suck each other out?
Yeah, like sucking. Oh, you mean like?
I'm not sure what was going on there in the breakdown, you know.
But I do see in the comments here we have more from Grant saying that, like, the All Blacks back line has had more time on the ball because Australia did nothing to the ruck, which is it's pretty true actually, because that Puma's defense really wasn't kind of engaging in terms of that, I guess, that center pair, in terms of sucking the defense in, because that's really what you need to do in terms of, like, I guess, like, putting the passes quickly out, which the All Blacks did pretty well actually in that game. But I do see obviously the other comment here saying, Dickman Delende and will come up on top. Rekawani is still not 13. Woof, that's a big call. That's a big call. I mean, the thing is that we've always had this debate, because even like years after, since that transition, I mean, what was the year actually that Reiko actually came into that 13 spot? Do you remember? Because he wasn't in the. I mean, he was part of that 2019 World Cup squad, and he was a winger for that kind of year. So I know it wasn't 2019. So I'm suspecting
it was after or the year after that. But because I know that they went through a patch, and he was actually one of the first guys that they decided to start playing in a different position than what he was originally.
I mean, he was the first guy actually. Yeah.
And then from there, we saw that little stint where Geordie Barrett ended up being a winger, and we had. Who else do we have? We had Bowden getting a bit of a chance as a 15, then a fly half when no one really knew what one.
Actually, Bowden Barrett actually might have been the first. Now that I think about it, he probably was the first big kind of move, and then it was probably, you're right, then Geordie Barrett's probably towards the wing, and then it was Reiko, and then obviously now the big one recently was actually putting Geordie Barrett in 12. Yeah. So, I mean, do you think he? Because I know it's the question we always ask, guys, but do you think Reiko is best suited at the 13, or do you think he's just better? He was better at the 11. Like, what do you think? Because I know I've said my opinion many times, but I want to hear your take on this first before I give mine.
I think with the way that the All Blacks currently seem to want to be tactically, Reiko doesn't suit number 11 with them, because they seem to want to have a big guy like a Clark or a Whainā Nuku or someone along those lines. George Bridge was the slight exclusion from that mould, and look at how that went. Everyone ripped into him, and now they haven't gone back to a small man out there since.
George
so
Bridge
Mark Talia, he's going to be a big testing point here, and luckily for him, he's going up against Cheslin Colby, which sounds weird to say luckily, but because Cheslin Colby isn't the biggest guy out there, it's going to mean that it's not so much of a mismatch in terms of size, because the All Blacks have always seemed to want to have their quick guy out on the right and the big man out on the left. And Rieko Ioane, if you're going off that, almost suits number 14 better for the ABs if you're talking out of number 14 or 11 with their current structure. So I don't think that has once passed through Ian Foster's mind of, we could give them a go at 14 because they've got fullbacks for that, don't they?
Exactly.
Well, Jordan, look at
that. And the thing is that, like, when you look at the 13s, they also have as well in terms of that All Blacks, squad. They have the likes of, Brendan Endell if they needed to, the number 13. They have I know he's not available in this rugby championship, but they have Anton Brown. They have Dallas McLeod if needed. So they have a lot of options there if Reiko was to switch back towards that number 11. But I mean, in my opinion, I've said that Reiko I see him better as a 13 compared to the days when he was 11, just because I think he actually is now. He's more of an important player, I think, for the All Blacks in that 13 spot than he was actually at the 11. Because, as you said, the All Blacks keep getting wingers at the wingers after wingers, and they keep switching them around. But Reiko realized, they knew Reiko was so important in terms of how unique he is as a player that they had to play. But they realized, okay, he can actually add a bit more. He can add a bit, add a different skill, you could say, towards that 13 position with his speed. And also in terms of his defensive, ability, he also can use his speed as well, because that kind of gives him the edge in terms of, I guess, tracking back players. So you could maybe make the argument maybe where you could also do that maybe at the number 11. So if he was to be put in the number 11 jersey, he could maybe have a better chance in terms of not saying catching up, but I guess matching Cheslin Colby in terms of speed, because I think Cheslin Colby, there's not a lot of players who are quicker than Reiko, by the way, guys. There's not a lot of players in the world who are quicker than Reiko, but Cheslin Colby, he's up there. I wouldn't. Who do you think would be quicker? Actually, that's an interesting one. Who do you think is quicker out of the two of them? Because
it's tricky because if you're basing it off league length, then per part of league, you'd probably go Cheslin Colby that little bit quicker. Yeah. But then does he look quicker as well because he is a little bit smaller?
Exactly.
Like,
That's what I was
nothing
gonna say.
against
Like,
him, but with that frame difference of Rico Ioane being about 190 centimeters compared to Cheslin Colby 170-ish, does that have a huge impact in terms of how quick they look like they're moving rather than how quick they actually are? In fact, I'm going to do it. Nah, they won't have this about rugby union players, will they? Rico Ioane, top speed.
check.
I'm going to have a look. Top
Yeah, and while you're
speed.
doing that, let me just get up the comments here. I think we have one from Grant saying, yeah, Reiko's defensive positioning is still suspect. I mean, and his pace helps him recover more often than not. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I mean, I do think his defensive. I don't think his defensive attributes now is more. I don't see it as a liability anymore because I do agree. In the past, there was a point in time like where you could make the argument where putting him at 13 maybe kind of opens up the defense a bit more for the attacking players in terms of that 13 position. But I also do believe that, like I said, his pace gives him that kind of extra boost in terms of, I guess, kind of like just tackling players down. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. But have you found that stat of yours?
Well, I've got Rico Ioane's top speed would get him a speeding ticket in a 30K zone. His top speed was around 39 point something that he has clocked in. Cheslin Colby, they haven't got the exact number for his max speed, I don't believe, but they have actually got here that he averages a speed, or he can maintain a speed of 33.66 kilometers an hour during 10 seconds for a 100-meter sprint or so. So, he can stay quick for a long period of time. I've just seen the average speed of a hooker is 25 kilometers an hour in international rugby. Pretty speedy.
That's right. I mean, Cody Taylor's pretty fast. You can never underestimate Cody Taylor in that sense. Interesting. Because the thing is that, so you're saying that by those kind of stats there, like Cheslin Colby, what, in terms of 100-meter is quicker than Reiko?
Oh, I should have looked up that, shouldn't I? So Cheslin Colby's 100-meter speed is
I think that's what I'm more interested in.
10.7 seconds.
Say one more time?
10.7.
10.7, okay.
I'm going to quickly go Rico Ioane 100-meter speed is 9.35 seconds.
See, that's what I was going to say. I did think I wasn't going to be. I didn't want to jinx it, but I actually did think Reiko in terms of like short distance could actually be quicker than Cheslin Colby. But in terms of longer distance, actually, I think Cheslin Colby may actually just beat Reiko. So that's kind of what the argument I was going to make there. But yeah, fair. Jeez,
although they must do it differently in South Africa in terms of, like, because Brian Habana's top is 10.4 and Rico is a whole second quicker. But I wouldn't have thought there was that much of a difference between those two. So maybe it's just the different, I don't know, one could be done in meters, one in yards or something. But yeah, a whole second faster and a whole second and a half faster than Cheslin Colby just seems like a little bit too much for Rico Ioane.
Yeah, exactly. That is kind of mad. I mean, the thing is, like,
that's why he's your guy, isn't it?
Exactly. but the thing is that, like, when I even look back, I mean, this is where I could be wrong, guys. But like, I think like because when I was back in high school, like, I think like the fastest I ever had, and because I actually did sprint a lot, guys. Like I was good at 100 meter, I was good at 200 meter, and I'd always do 4 times 100. So like, obviously, I do the 100 meter with 3 other people. But I think like the fastest I got was like 12.87. Which I know doesn't sound like amazing when you're comparing to these guys, but trust me, I was really happy with that back at I was really happy with that. But again, when I was competing against other people, maybe around Asia, because that's kind of like the thing we were doing back then, I was not even close to anyone there. Everyone was like hitting like the 11-minute mark, which is like I couldn't even do. So I was far out of my depth then. But I mean, like, what about you? Did you ever get into like the whole sprinting aspect of? I don't know. Did you do that back in high school?
I think the best that I did in high school was a participation point that they give you just for taking part in the race. Nice. We used to do a 60-meter dash, which was pretty much just anyone who wanted to run from one side piece to another. You get a point for your house. High jump, I didn't do very well in it. I once tried to throw a javelin and almost concussed myself. So that was impressive. But at primary school, I was actually pretty quick. I was actually keeping up with what would be considered the quicker kids in the school. But then I think my problem was anytime I was in a sprinting battle, I'd always look around to see where mum and dad were, see if they were watching. And then, of course, when you head sideways and you're running like this, you just don't quite get that same momentum going.
Yeah,
as
fair
if
enough.
you were to, pin the ears down and just go for it.
I actually had that same incident, not like looking at my family, but actually like I was racing against one of my friends, and we were literally in the same this like the lanes right next to each other, and we're doing like I think it was like backstroke or something like that, and we're getting to like the last kind of like I don't know 3/4 of the length, and I do a quick look at like my mate, he's like on the left of me, and he looks at me, and I was like, holy crap, I've looked at him, and he looks at me. We keep going and going. I do an extra look. And he's like, because I did the extra look, he actually got the edge over me, and then he won the race. And he just looked, I was like, why were you looking at me? Like, why are you looking at me? It's like, well, I want it. It was just such a, I don't know why I did it, but yeah, you should definitely not like, you should definitely pay attention throughout the whole race, whatever sport you do. But I guess, I mean, like just finishing off in terms of this game, I mean, what do you think then of like, who do you think will win? Like, what is your prediction for the game then?
Well, I did a preview earlier on today, so I better stick with that prediction, or else then people will be like, oh, you can't keep changing it.
You keep changing on different channels.
But 25-22 in favour of the All Blacks.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know. Like, I'm not really sure what to think about that. I was thinking that maybe it's too low, but at the same time, it could be too high because you just don't know with these games where I just don't know. I don't know because I think when the Box beat the All Blacks the last time in South Africa, I think we won by like 19 points to like 5, I think it was, or like 7. So, but then that other game was like 30. I think it was like 30. I don't know, 4 points to like 31, or it was something like it was a high score in 30 game. So I guess if I do my prediction for this game, I mean, look, I have to edge it towards the Box. I think I just got to. But I think again, it's gonna be separated by a fine margin. So I'm gonna say, oh gosh, I just don't think the kicking. I don't think we'll have a lot of kicking in this game. So I'm gonna say 20 points to 17. I'm gonna say 20 points to 17. Oh, I could be wrong on that, but I'm gonna say 20 points to 17 to the Box. Yeah, that's my final prediction for that game. But yeah, but before we do so, I mean, we've one from Grant saying, yeah, we measure speed and how many cheetahs can you be? Yep, that's pretty good. Yeah, good way to measure speed. But yeah, following that, of course, we then move on then towards the Wallabies versus the Pumas as the second matchup, of course, of this Rugby Championship. I'll give you my take first overall, just what do I think about the game. I mean, I think really just this game is really going to determine who really finishes third, I think, overall. I think in terms of this Rugby Championship, in terms of the competition. I mean, both sides really did get kind of blown out really in that first round by both the All Blacks and the Box. There's a lot of lessons to be learned really from both perspectives. I think very different as well because the Wallabies really just had to work more, I guess, in terms of their, I would say set pieces is really what the Wallabies have to learn a bit about because they really did lose the ball a lot of times in terms of the scrums or the lineouts. But then from a Pumas perspective, I'd also say they just need to hold possession a lot more because I think their set pieces actually were pretty good actually going into that second half, and they actually challenged the All Blacks actually not front as well. But I do think they have to hold on to possession. They can't give it away as easily as they did in that first round. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, what do you think about the game overall? Like, what do you expect from this?
I think that position is going to be so important when these two sides go head to head because both of them only tasted about that 30% in their last fixture, which does mean there's a lot more position up for grabs in this game. So territory, I can see Argentina going with more of the kicking game than Australia, just with the selection that we've seen from the Aussies. Seems like a little bit more of a attacking side with Samu Karevi starting at number 12, Noah Kwanita-Wasi out on the right wing for this game. A lot of people thought that he may have actually been starting the last match rather than who they did go with, but Suliasi Vunivalu, I feel like he didn't quite get into the game, so I can see why they have decided to make that change on defense. Got beaten just that little bit too easily by Kurt Rinse, but then saying that who wouldn't with the way that man was playing.
Yeah.
Getting himself 3 tries. But yeah, for the Aussies, scrum time's going to be so important. But everything we say about Australia, that's important. It's the same for Argentina because they also had that same problem. Scrum time. We saw the Aussies not doing at all anywhere near what we normally see from them, giving away the penalties. Argentina, exact same thing. They were conceding penalty after penalty, advantage after advantage. And I think the big thing is just going to be try and stay on the front foot in this game. The Aussies started well up against South Africa. They can put together, rather than a 10-minute start, a 40-minute start. We've seen what the All Blacks were able to do. They were able to get themselves enough of a lead in that first 40 minutes that even though Argentina scored the same points as them in the second half, they still walked away with a victory. I think a lead at halftime for Aussie would be very important, going a long way towards that victory.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think whenever you think that the Pumas have a shot in winning a game, they're always tend to be in the lead, you could say, going into that first half. So yeah, I do agree that if the Pumas were to win, they want to obviously have that lead. But if Australia want to win, then yeah, you definitely want that lead at half time. But yeah, I guess in terms of the want to watch players for this game, who do you think you should be kind of having your eye out for in terms of both teams?
Well, it's a big hit for the Aussies not having Michael Hooper, of course.
Yeah.
But then saying that, I don't think he did a huge amount in that game up against South Africa. So I'm actually more excited to see Fraser McReight now at number 7, because we saw what that man did in the Rugby Championship last year, and he was phenomenal. He was scoring himself tries. He was getting turnovers. And I feel like after not getting selected for that first game up against the Box, he'll feel like he's got something to prove, and this game up against Argentina could be a very, very good chance at doing so. Quade Cooper at number 10, I don't know whether or not I call him one of my key players, but I would say that he is going to have to have a great performance, because some people were even thinking maybe a Carter Gordon could have been an option at 10 in this game up against Los Pumas. Yeah, I would say if I had to pick 2, I'd pick Fraser McReight, and then also I would go with Lena Katau, the man at outside centre, just because he is normally a very good one to watch out for.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I mean, what about the Pumas though? What do you think in terms of the Pumas? Who kind of keeps your eye out in terms of that team?
Well, they've made a couple changes, not a huge amount. I see that they didn't actually go with Facundo Isa at number 7, but they did switch it to Grondona, which we kind of predicted, didn't we? We said that Juan Martin Gonzalez probably wouldn't get the start. Surprisingly, he's starting at 8.
I was going to say, he's at the 8 position this time.
Yeah. So, I mean, Matera is always going to be one to watch out for, just with that passionate nature of the man. Emiliano Boffelli, I'm looking at him and saying, don't know if we saw enough from him last week. And I feel like this week needs to be different. He had a little bit of an injury, though, throughout that game up against the All Blacks, which did seem to slow him down a little bit more. But yeah, I'm going to go Matera and probably Boffelli as my 2 that I'm definitely keeping an eye out for. Normally, the 2 names that a lot of people remember with Los Pumas, but there's a reason they remember them.
That's true. That is true. I mean, yeah, I think within this game, there's actually a lot of people you can kind of keep your eye out for, because, the things that, first of all, is Michael Hooper actually injured, or is he just not, or he just hasn't been selected?
I think injured, from what I've heard.
Okay, I
just a little one, but something that I don't think will keep him out of the Rugby Championship completely, but I think just for this game, he picked up a little bit of a small knock, because I actually heard that was the same with Amoni Narawa, which is actually why he didn't get the chance.
I think something with his back
against the Springboks.
So yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, no, I think in terms of this game, if I do kind of separate players to what you say, because I would have said Fraser McReight as well, because I'm just interested to see what he can do in this game. But I think Samu Kerevi is probably one I'm going to keep an eye out for, because he is kind of being introduced back and towards this lineup. He's kind of taking that spot away from Reece Hodge, and I think that was needed, because I even said in the game, kind of to the build up to this, that I don't really think Reece Hodge is a good option at 12. I understand why they did it, because Eddie likes obviously having that kind of 10-12 kind of combination in terms of someone who can play make in both positions, but I really don't think that's what the Wallabies need. And I think when you have a player like Samu Kerevi, who is just he's a world-class player. I think you can't really argue the fact that he's a world-class player. I mean, he was literally, I think he was voted like in 2021, or I think it was 2021 and 20. I think it was 2021, yeah, because 2020 was awarded. But 2021, he was one of the 4 players selected for World Player of the Year. So he is definitely in that category where he can just win you a game, kind of just by himself. So I think he has to be at that 12 position. And like you said, that combination with him and Len Ikitau is going to be really dangerous to see what happens. But I think there's another player I got to mention. I mean, I think who's the number 11 for this game? I mean, they're going with Corbett,
They have
right?
gone,
Yeah, but I think, I mean, you got to say Mark Nara Kontawasi. I think he's probably the other player. You just got to kind of give him a shout out, because I think a lot of Aussie fans are really just kind of saying, yeah, Vunivalu just didn't really step up in that game. His defense, he was really kind of more of a defensive liability, and he just, whenever he had his hand on the ball, he wasn't able to kind of do much with the space he had. So I guess Mark, just he has a lot more speed in his, I think, just with him, and I think that'll help, because I think he's playing the 14. So I mean, Buffeli's playing 15. Number 11, I think, is going to be what, Mateus Caceres. I think on Mateus Caceres once more. Yeah, so we'll be facing him as terms of the matchup. So I think he could win that actually battle. So yeah, I think Mark Kontawasi, I think he's probably going to be my one-to-watch player in this game. But very interested to see what Sabu Karevi can do for the Wallabies as well. But I guess in terms of the Pumas, I mean, yeah, I really don't want to say the obvious players like you have with Matera and Buffelli, because I think that's like the players you always mention. But they are really crucial, so it's understandable. But I guess in this game, if I had to say one player, I'm actually fascinated to see what he does, is actually Santiago Caceres, just because he's one player who I think it's similar to what you said about Quay Cooper. Like he has to have a good game if the Pumas really want to kind of get rolling in terms of that back line, because he really is the playmaker for them. And I do think like at times he was kicking high on the ball in the air. I mean, I think they did switch it out pretty quickly actually in that second half for Nicolas Sanchez. So they actually made a bit of a switch there early on, which was fascinating to see. But I don't know, like I think Caceres can do a job in this game. I think this could kind of help him in that sense, because he is going to go against someone like the likes of Quay Cooper. I think that's a good battle in the sense, young versus experience versus kind of like the young dog. So yeah, I'm excited to see what we can kind of win that battle in terms of the 10s. But I guess there's another player. I mean, I'm trying to think. Is there? I mean, yeah, Lavini. I mean, it'll be interesting to actually see, because if I actually think the Wallabies actually have changed their locking duo, right, for this game, because they actually took out Nick Frost, if I'm not mistaken, and they put in Jed Holloway's been at 6. Who's the other lock they've gone with? They've gone with Will Skelton,
Arnold, and Skelton.
That's it. They've gone with Richie Arnold. Yeah, I think that's going to be a good battle. I think we're seeing Richie Arnold versus maybe like Thomas Lavavini. I think that's going to be a good battle, because I mean, Richie Arnold's like what? Like he's in his 30s, right? But he's now getting his his debut for the Wallabies for the first time. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what he can do. But yeah, no, really excited to see what obviously can happen. Wallabies will have home advantage, of course, so that will go into their favor. But yeah, I mean, just overall, what do you think in terms of the score? Like, what do you think? Will it be a tight game? Do you think it'll be a wide margin? Like, what do you think will be the what's your score prediction for the game?
It's a very tricky one to call, this game, because there's a part of me that thinks it's going to be close, and then for some reason I keep thinking to myself, there's a chance that we could see a 15-point victory for Australia. Home field advantage. I know that's where it's confusing me, Tim. Because I don't know where that's coming from. But
I don't like it.
There's just a part of me that for some reason feels like if this game isn't close, Argentina, they had their home crowd behind them and they weren't able to deliver. Yeah. Normally, they have their best performance up against the All Blacks in a rugby championship, and then sometimes up against other sides. Historically,
that is true.
Has been when they've struggled a little bit more. So I'd hate to see them go all the way to Australia on a plane to then not show up. And, there's just that little part of my brain that's thinking, what if that is the case? I don't want it to be, but, it could happen. But I'm going to say it's going to be relatively close. I'm going to give it now I'm thinking 9-point margin, but I'm going to say 6.
Reducing it slightly.
6-point margin, so they get the bonus point. Just
to
have something. And I say Aussie are going to win the game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring one. I'm going to go with 29 points to 23.
29 points. Wow. Okay, that is pretty high scored actually for a game like this. That's okay. That's
Well,
fascinating.
29-14 to the Aussies.
Oh, okay.
If it ends up going that way.
Okay, but you're saying the Aussies will win. That's what you're saying.
I think so. I feel like Argentina, like Eddie Jones, there was so much that they could learn from that last game. And I'd hope that now that they've had that reality check of, okay, it's not going to be smooth sailing. Now they've got time to work at it. They didn't have, overall, with the fact that they've got a few changes in their squad as well for this game, a couple other players coming in, there'll be a few fresh guys out there. But Australia A, I'm more curious to see how they go up against Tonga as well. The likes of Taniela Tupou returning. They've got James O'Connor back for them.
Well, hasn't that game happened already?
It's happening almost now, I think, in like 15 minutes.
Wait, what? I thought the game already happened. Yeah.
Australia A versus Tonga.
I don't want to spoil it for you because I know the score, but
was it today? Maybe?
I already know the scoreline. So
well, there you go.
Tonga won.
Round number 1. Tonga. Good stuff. 27 points to 26.
Yeah.
Charles Piato's score. Well, there you go. I don't even know what day it is, Tim. So stuff happens. Bernard Foley, though.
That's also a good result for Tonga because, that can kind of, I don't know, maybe, I'm not saying it should worry Scotland, but, for that Rugby World Cup, because they're in the same group, that could be, it could be a lot closer than what most people think. But, yeah, I guess in terms of my prediction for this game, I don't know. It is a tough one because if you look at both games, what we saw within round 1, I actually do think Argentina was better against the All Blacks than the Wallabies were against the Boks. But like you said, the Wallabies do have home advantage in this game, so that can kind of go into their favor. So, and the thing is, I actually don't. I can't even remember the last time the Pumas actually won in Australia. Like, do you remember the last time they won? Because I'm not sure if it's happened or. I feel like it's happened once. I feel like
because they beat Australia in Argentina last year. Didn't they?
But I do think they've been I think they have beaten Australia once. I could be wrong with this, guys, but maybe I have to look back at the records in that. But I do think they have beaten them once in Australia. But I just look. I really don't know if they'll do it from this one though, because again, you have to remember that they don't have players like Marcus Clemmer available for this game, who I do think would be a big player actually, because going against the likes of Fraser McWright, that would be like a battle. That's a key battle there, really, in my opinion, if he was available. But gosh, I just don't know. I really want to say the Pumas, but I think my heart is saying the Pumas, but my head is saying the Wallabies. So I just don't know. You know what? I'm gonna go with my heart. I'm gonna say the Pumas will win. My heart was very wrong last week, by the way, guys. When I predicted that they may have a chance against the All Blacks and maybe beat them, but I am gonna trust my heart once more, and I'm gonna say 23 points to 16.
Okay, so still that bonus point for the Aussies.
No. Yeah. Sorry, I was like, well, a bonus point for the Pumas. I was like, what? No. But yeah, I'm gonna say 23 points to 16. I think that's my final prediction for the game. But yeah, I think that's kind of it, guys. We're at what, the 48 minute mark here, and that's kind of a good kind of time to obviously kind of end it. But yeah, just obviously, guys. Obviously, if you guys haven't already, subscribe to our channel, guys. Like the video, guys, right now. And of course, obviously, the Kiwi Lads channel if you haven't already, guys. Subscribe there. Obviously, subscribe towards the Rugby Itch. Would greatly appreciate that. But I believe both of us will be doing a live stream for tomorrow. So definitely check us out, because we will be doing live streams for both games. So for both the All Blacks and Springboks game, as well as the Wallabies and Argentina game. So both, check our channels, guys. We'd greatly appreciate that. It's gonna be a great game overall. I'm very excited. This is probably we're gonna have the biggest rival in my opinion, I think, clash, you say, in rugby history, really, with the Boks and All Blacks. So you don't get a lot of opportunity to see this game, guys. Again, we're only gonna have this once actually in the Rugby Championship, but fortunately, we will have another battle of these two teams actually in Twickenham, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I think that will be the last warm-up game actually for both these sides. But yeah, guys, just thank you obviously for everyone who came along. I really do greatly appreciate that. Yeah, we do have a grandstand in the comments. Yeah, thanks for the stream, lads. Yeah, of course, you're welcome. You're welcome. And yeah, no, we'll see you guys next time. We'll see you guys next time.